Okay, these are the notes from Monday 2/24, and I'm going to teach you how to predict how many roots or solutions an equation has depending on the form that it's in, and then we're also going to find y-intercept of any polynomial. So we actually already know how to do it in standard form. So the question that's being asked here is how many solutions? So we should be able to just look at an equation, and if it's in standard form, remember we're going to look at the highest exponent. And that highest exponent is called the degree. And that will tell us the number of solutions. So we've done that the past like 10 days. So I've got 4 here, I've got 5 here, and I've got 3 here. Okay, we could also ask how many roots. Same answers. That doesn't change. We could also ask what is the max amount of x-intercepts. So all of these are really asking the same question. And we're going to get the answers for standard form by looking at the highest exponent, which is called the degree. But really what we need to work on is the factored form. So notice right away that factored form has the parentheses. That's how I know it's in factored form. Standard form does not. And to do this, we are going to add the degree of each individual factor. So we're going to look at a factor, determine what the highest exponent is on each of them, and then add them together. So for the most part, they'll look something like this first example. So the highest exponent of this first term, and it's really just an x, well, there's no exponent on it. And when there is no exponent, it's a 1. So the degree of this term right here is x, or this factor. The degree of this factor is also a 1. Again, the degree is the highest exponent. The highest exponent on this x is a 1. This is a 1. This is a 1. If I add them all together, I have 4 solutions. Okay, now for the most part, it looks like that, but sometimes we have different exponents. So for example, in the second problem, if you notice, there's a double root here. So that means I'm going to have 2 for that factor, 1 for this one, 1 for this one, 1 for this one, and I have a total of 5. Okay, and then in my last example, this factor has a degree of 1, and this factor has a degree of 2. Remember, it's the highest exponent in the factor. So when I add them together, I get a 3. All right, we're going to add one more example on here just so that you can see some variation. So please write this in your foldable. All right, so when we look at this one, we don't actually care about this 1/2. It has no x on it. If there is no x, there is no degree. So we don't even need to worry about that one. That's not even going to be counted. This one, the highest exponent on this x is a 1. And the highest exponent on this whole factor is a 2. So when I add those together, I get 3. So some people get confused because they see this other x in here. We are going to ignore this. Because remember, we're trying to find the highest exponent in the factor. This whole factor has the highest exponent of a 2. Okay, that's how we're going to predict how many solutions. Now we're going to go down to the y-intercept. So y-intercept is not a new idea, but we're going to talk about it in terms of polynomials and how to get it from an equation. So this is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. And for these polynomials, it will only be one time. So they look like roller coasters, not the kind with like a twisty on it, but just like a normal roller coaster. Okay, and then the coordinate looks like 0, y. So that y is going to be some number. So when we have an equation, to get that, the first thing you're going to do is sub in 0 for x. So everywhere you see an x, you're going to put a 0. Then you're going to simplify it in the calculator. Please, there's no need for mental math. We want to make sure this is actually accurate, so please use your calculator. And one more reminder, just that f of x and y are the same thing for our purposes. So even if you see an equation like this one where it says f of x, really it's just a y. So if you want to replace that with a y, that's fine. All right, so we're going to find the y-intercept of this first one. So y equals 2, and I'm going to sub in 0 for that x, and then I'm going to sub in 0 for that x. So notice that the parentheses are still here that are part of the factor. I use these parentheses to show multiplication. If you just want to put a multiplication sign between them, that would work too. But these outside parentheses have to be here. So when I put this in the calculator, I'm going to get y equals 6. So you're going to practice putting that in the calculator throughout the next 2 weeks. And then here's my last example. I'm going to take 0 to the 4th power plus 2 times 0 minus 5. If you don't remember in the calculator, the exponent key looks like this caret, and it's under the pi symbol. So when I put in 0 to the 4th power, it will look like 0 to the caret and then the 4. And when I put that in the calculator and simplify it, I get -5. So all of these components are going to come together to eventually sketch a polynomial. And so these are just the kind of beginning pieces of information that we need so that we can use it to determine other pieces of information, which we're going to continue in the next day's notes.